Naruto's relationship with Jiraiya is more than mentor and student, it's like father and son. The Legendary Sannin each mentored one member of Team 7. Jiraiya had Naruto, Orochimaru had Sasuke, and Tsunade had Sakura. But I can't help but wonder what it could have been like for each to train under all three at the same time, particularly Naruto. How could this have changed things? I suppose there's only one way to figure this out, so let's get into it. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so if you don't subscribe by 5 p.m, the next time you order fast food, they will forget to add your fries. But before we get started, let's hop into our deadly war machines for a word from today's sponsor, War Thunder, aka the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. You can play for free right now on PC, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, PS4, and PS5. There are more than 2,000 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships to try out, each one modeled down to the tiniest parts. They're all customizable too, with hundreds of camouflage options. Heck, there are even custom user-made skins, including anime-themed decorations. Crush your opponents while adorned with the smiling face of Miss Nagatoro, or maybe wage war while cloaked in the red clouds of the Akatsuki. If you're worried about it being a little complicated, don't worry. You can fly any aircraft using just your mouse and keyboard thanks to mouse aim mode. Personally, I love how detailed each vehicle is. This is especially wild when you or your enemies start to take damage, and you get to see the super realistic destruction happen in real time. Click our link to get playing right now and receive 100,000 Silver Lions, 3 free vehicles, a 50% EXP and Silver Booster, 7 days of premium account access, and an absolutely insane new addition to the game, a 3D Dakimakura. Yes, that is right, you can decorate your tank with an anime body pillow. What a world. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Jiraiya sat alone at a bar in Konoha. He let out a sigh as he took his headband off. Ever since Minato had died, things had gotten tougher. Hiruzen was back in power, and the process of rebuilding Konoha was starting to take a toll on everyone. Not just physically rebuilding the village, because that had ended years ago. It was rebuilding their reputation that they were doing now. Konoha was full of powerful shinobi, this was true, but the near destruction of their way of life was enough to cause any nation watching to reconsider the way they perceived Konoha. A single man with a tailed beast walked in and decimated the village. That did the one thing to Konoha that the tailed beast's rampage alone could not do. It made them look weak, and this weakness caused those who sought opportunity to crop up and attempt to move against the village, hoping to profit from its destruction. But Jiraiya was here. Having been called back into service like this had been a shock to his system. He'd grown accustomed to his role as an undercover spy, searching for leads into this man who had harmed the Leaf. But it seemed that what Konoha needed now the most was someone to take on missions that displayed dominance, not one seeking a single man. Too much energy wasted. Jiraiya believed in his heart that bringing this man to justice would be able to restore some of their name, but Hiruzen's orders were absolute. And so, here he was, back in Konoha, working as he had during the Second Shinobi World War. At about that time, the door opened with the chime of a bell as a man stepped in. Jiraiya peeked around the side, looking past the many people standing in the way. He'd wave out, "Orochimaru! Orochimaru, over here!" The old snake would walk over and sit down by him. Quick note for the viewers, I'm changing Orochimaru just a little. He's gonna be a little calmer, a little less evil. I'm going to add to him a conscience, something he seemed to lack in the original story. While he is still a scientist, he possesses some moral standards, meaning that he isn't killing anyone in his research. This also means that he isn't driven out of the village. Back to the story. He would sit down next to Jiraiya. "You called?" Jiraiya nodded. "Yeah." Orochimaru looked over. "What's the issue?" Jiraiya shook his head as he poured Orochimaru a glass of sake. "Nothing's the issue, I just wanted to spend a little time with my old team. I need to relax." Orochimaru looked around. "Where's Tsunade then? I assumed you would have invited her." Jiraiya laughed. "I did. She's in the bathroom. She beat both of us here." They looked back to see Tsunade stumbling out of the bathroom. She leaned against the wall and hiccuped, her face a bright red as her eyes indicated that she'd been drinking long before either of them had arrived. Another slight change. Tsunade doesn't leave the village here. She decides to stay for her love of the village. She stumbles into the bar and sits down. She takes a bottle and pours a little sake into a shot glass before pushing the shot glass aside. "Save some for later." She turned the bottle up and chugged it until it was dry. She let out a sigh and a partially hidden burp. Tsunade then looked to him with half-closed eyes. "So why did you call us here?" Jiraiya laughed. "Why can't we just relax?" Tsunade shook her head. "You've got something up your sleeve. You only ever ask us out when you've got something to say, she said. I've known you long enough to know how you are. Well, if you have something to say, then say it now before the sake kicks in. Jiraiya looked down. You guys remember when I trained with the Toad Sages? Tsunade nodded. Orochimaru sat forward, both elbows on the bar as he took a sip from his glass. He knew Jiraiya had been hiding his motivations. Yeah, I recall it. It was what spurred me to go searching for a sage of my very own to learn from. Jiraiya continued. Well, the Toad Sage I trained under had a vision. Orochimaru looked at Jiraiya with curiosity, not speaking as he did not want to interrupt. Jiraiya continued. In the vision, he said I would one day train the Child of Destiny. The child would go on to bring peace to the world. I don't know if it'll be any of the kids I've already trained or will train. Tsunade gave a hiccup as she shot back the sake in the shot glass. We definitely know it won't be Minato, because he's dead. Orochimaru looked away as he knew this was a sensitive subject for Jiraiya, as Jiraiya had been Minato's mentor. Jiraiya ignored the statement and continued. I don't know if I've trained them yet, but I do know one thing. I want to keep training shinobi. If I have yet to train the Child of Prophecy, when I eventually do, I want to offer him every tool to get prepared with. I want you two to join me in training them. I'm certain that together we can make them even stronger. Orochimaru let out a long, droning sound as he thought about it skeptically. I don't know. I'm more of a scientist at heart. I'm not really cut out to be anyone's mentor. Jiraiya scoffed at this. You already had a team, Orochimaru. Yeah, and they never really amounted to anything. Oh, come on. Anko Mitarashi is a skilled girl. Orochimaru thought about it. I'll give her credit, but she still isn't much more than just some other shinobi. Jiraiya continued. Well, what about that Kabuto boy? Aren't you mentoring him? Only in the academic arts, Jiraiya. I'm not teaching him how to be a ninja. I'm teaching him how to be a scientist. Jiraiya shrugged. Same difference. You're mentoring someone, and that's what matters. So what is it to add a few kernels of wisdom to the next generation? I'm not asking you to give up your studies, nor am I demanding that you take on students of your own. I'm merely asking that as I train them, when I send them your way, you'll do me a solid and give them some pointers. Orochimaru nodded. Fine, I can do that. Jiraiya looked back at Tsunade. What do you think about it? Are you willing to try? Tsunade held up her finger. I have a question. What is it? Jiraiya asked. Her eyes rolled up and she fell off the stool onto the floor. Jiraiya looked down. I guess that question has to come later. Jiraiya stood and threw her over his shoulder. I suppose I should get her home. I'm just glad that you'll be willing to help me, Orochimaru. I don't know who this Child of Prophecy is, but with the way of the shinobi world, they'll need all the help they can get. A boy in an orange jumpsuit stepped into the light of the rising sun. His right foot resting on a box like Captain Morgan or something, he gazed out over the village with a look of excitement. Enter Naruto Uzumaki, the most hated and gutsy ninja in the village. Fresh out of the academy, he was here to show the world that he didn't give a rat's ass about what they said. He would become Hokage and be renowned as a respectable person, someone that everyone would have no choice but to acknowledge. Look out, world, 'cause here I come. He jumped down from his perch on the side of his apartment building, dropping to the ground. He rushed off as he zipped his orange jacket and tied his headband around his head, the marked forehead protector serving as a spiteful symbol of his own worth to any of the villagers who would so often gaze at him with contempt. Now they merely avoided looking at him in general. Those who did look at him would do so out of the corner of their eye. Naruto would look at these people and pull his left bottom eyelid down and stick out his tongue. Neener, neener, neener. On most days, he was a bit more respectful, but he really wanted to rub it in their faces now. Regardless of what they said or did, he was now an official ninja, and one step closer to becoming Hokage. So who cared what they thought at this moment? They'd eventually have to respect him. He rushed into the academy where he would be assigned to Team 7. This consisted of Sakura, who Naruto was ecstatic about being on a team with, and Sasuke, who Naruto was less than thrilled to team up with. Irika would tell them where to go to meet their Jonin, Kakashi, and they'd head there. The start to their relationship with Kakashi seemed rocky at best, as he tested their teamwork and had them doing chores as opposed to missions. But when Naruto's voice cried out for a real challenge, Hiruzen offered them the Tazuna escort mission, which Naruto accepted with vigor and excitement. Jiraiya was merely walking down the street when he suddenly saw Naruto and his team run by. He turned for a moment as they passed and looked back. Minato? He watched the little blonde boy run off beside his team. Jiraiya felt a strange sense of nostalgia from looking at the boy. Something in him reminded him of his time with Minato. He continued to walk on, looking back only once to see that same bright smile that he had taught years ago reflected in another face, and he began to wonder, could it be? He was currently making his way to the Hokage's office, only stopping once to greet Orochimaru, who just so happened to be going in the same direction. The old man summoned you too? Jiraiya asked. Orochimaru scoffed. We can hardly call him that anymore, Jiraiya. We're getting old too. Jiraiya looked over as they continued on their path. You seem far less hostile towards that fact than you used to. Orochimaru pondered it for a time. When I was younger, I was terrified of dying. Yet you decided to become a shinobi, Jiraiya interposed. Orochimaru continued, I didn't become a shinobi to fight. I became a shinobi to learn all of the secrets that this life has to offer. This is a big world filled with the mystery of jutsu. Who wouldn't want to study it? But back in the original point, I was scared of dying. My parents were killed in the line of duty when I was younger. While I had heard of death before, that was my first run-in. For the longest time, I trained, grew stronger, studied, grew wiser, all in an effort to stave off death, to hopefully find some jutsu that would make me so powerful that I could stop even those I cared about from dying. Maybe even find a way to bring those who perished back to life. Jiraiya continued to listen. These things he had known about Orochimaru to a degree, but it seemed his partner was feeling quite generous today and giving him a grand tour into his thought process. Orochimaru continued, I studied for so long, but in the end, the best I could find was not what should even be touched. Jiraiya stopped them for a moment. Wait, are you saying that you... Orochimaru looked away for a moment. No way. You learned to keep others from dying? How to resurrect the dead? Orochimaru looked back. Can I ask you something, Jiraiya? Jiraiya listened. Let's say you had a beloved puppy, something you cherished with all of your being. One day that puppy's run over by a cart. The driver stops and attempts to give it aid, but it's too late. You arrive and see it in the throes of death, utter agony as it lets off a little whimper in your arms. It then perishes. Now say, on the same street, you see a happy child with their very own puppy. It jumps about and plays as the child laughs. Now say the devil appeared to you and said, I can bring your dog back to life, and in exchange, all I ask is that you take this hatchet and kill that child's puppy. What would you do? Jiraiya was startled by this question. He knew Orochimaru long enough to know that this was an analogy to whatever path to immortality he had discovered. Jiraiya swallows. I would pass up the chance. I wouldn't want to hurt someone else to ease my pain. Orochimaru would smile. That is because you are a kind person, Jiraiya. But for the sake of the argument, let's say you took the deal. The child sits there in terror, tears streaming down their cheeks as they see you kill their beloved pet. As promised, the devil brings your puppy back to life, but when he does, the puppy is not the same. It's still wounded, covered in scars, alive and capable of moving about, but it no longer plays. It no longer barks. It doesn't do anything. It takes commands, but there's no joy in its heart. A walking corpse on a leash. Jiraiya was a little depressed from this conversation, but he knew that whatever Orochimaru was saying was important to his current mindset, so he listened. Jiraiya, I say this because I learned the cost of resurrection or immortality. If I so desired, I could use this ability on myself and live forever, but not knowing what it does. And that leads me to my new view of life. The only thing worse than dying is to live forever in this unjust and corrupt world. So, I've begun to dedicate all of my time and resources onto other projects that can heal people and save those who have yet to die. Jutsu that can defend and heal, technology to make life better. We only get one life on this earth, Jiraiya. It's best that we spend it being happy rather than worrying about when it will end. Jiraiya, at that moment, realized just how much Orochimaru had grown. He had not only grown intelligent in his studies, but wise, too. He had come to acknowledge not only the truths of this world, but the truths inside of himself, some of them painful and hard to look at. He had grown as a person, not just a scientist. And he knew that if Hiruzen had seen this in the time when the Third Shinobi World War had passed, that surely Orochimaru would have been the fourth Hokage. They continued to walk in silence. I didn't mean to ruin the mood, Jiraiya. Jiraiya snapped back to reality. Huh? No, you didn't ruin anything. You gave me a lot to think about. I'm grateful to have that conversation, friend. Orochimaru let off a slight smile as they entered the building. Do you know what Hiruzen called us here for? Jiraiya asked. Orochimaru looked over. Likely something to do with the Chunin exams. Jiraiya was puzzled. Chunin exams? Orochimaru looked back. You didn't know? The Chunin exams are going to be hosted here, in Konoha. A time for the best of the best to prove themselves. It's going to begin at the end of the week. Jiraiya pondered this as they opened the door into Hiruzen's office. The elderly man sat at his desk while Tsunade sat on the couch, a look on her face saying she felt like she'd been hit by a train. Hiruzen looked to them. As I'm sure you're all aware, the Chunin exams will begin in 1 week. This means we're going to have people coming in from all directions. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. Good in that we'll see plenty of tourists and people with deep pockets checking out the businesses here. But bad in those who wish to destroy us could just walk in without us knowing. Jiraiya listened. Are you thinking someone's going to try and attack us? Hiruzen nodded and continued. I have it on authority from one of my deep cover contacts that a certain group has interest in causing havoc here, in an effort to sneak in and steal something of great importance. And what thing would that be? Orochimaru asked. Hiruzen pulled out a picture of a young shinobi. He slid it forward across the desk. Jiraiya picked it up and looked at it, realizing that it was the same boy he had seen earlier leaving the village. Orochimaru looked over his shoulder at the picture. Jiraiya passed the picture to Tsunade as he spoke. "What's so special about this boy?" Hiruzen continued. "His name is Naruto Uzumaki. He's the current vessel of the nine-tailed demon fox. And he's the son of Minato Namikaze, your former pupil." Jiraiya's eyes went wide as he flashed back to all the times he had spent with Minato, along with the moment he received the news of his death. "What would you like us to do?" Orochimaru said. "I've sent him out of the village on a mission for now. He should be safe with Kakashi and the others. This is a low-level escort mission. I wanted him out of the village as the other nations begin to file in so we could properly house and monitor them before taking Naruto into consideration. He should be back before the Chunin exams officially start. When he does get back, I need you three to offer protection to him, personally. There's no one I trust more than you three. Can I count on you to do that?" he asked. Each member of the team nodded and accepted this most important mission. Hiruzen would excuse them. For a few days, they just hung about, waiting for Naruto's return. When eventually he did come back, they kept close to him, but just out of the way. He remembered the scroll he had received the day Minato passed. It possessed the key to Naruto's seal, and was the embodiment of trust between Minato and Jiraiya. Minato was asking Jiraiya to teach Naruto how to learn to control his beast. Jiraiya had only just now remembered it. It felt as if fate were right now setting things up for Jiraiya to fulfill prophecy and teach the child of promise. Perhaps Naruto was the one. Jiraiya was getting more and more excited about this task as he watched on. He followed the trio, as did Tsunade and Orochimaru. It seemed that neither of them were conscious of the possibilities as they watched this child and his friends. Once they entered the building in which they would sign up for the Chunin exams, they backed off and merely watched from outside, making sure that nobody came or went without their knowledge and identification. When the exams began in earnest, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru kept close. The first test wasn't so hard, and they didn't really need to do anything. But when the second test rolled around, they were informed by Hiruzen that they were allowed to enter into the Forest of Death, but that they must at all times remain disguised and unseen by others. And above all, they must not interfere with the test whatsoever. This meant that they could not save Naruto if he were attacked or for any other reason besides taking his tailed beast. And so, that's just what they did. They gave him plenty of space and didn't dare come any closer. Due to this, Team 7 manages to complete the task with average time. After that came the first half of the third round, the exhibitions. Jiraiya watched closely Team 7's actions as they fought. Sasuke had a far easier time as he could use ninjutsu due to having never received the curse mark. Tsunade would come to Jiraiya and nudge him. "Hey, you're supposed to be keeping an eye out for anyone who might want to harm Naruto." Jiraiya pointed out, "Did you see how that Uchiha boy seamlessly went from ninjutsu to taijutsu?" Tsunade rolls her eyes. "Okay, so what? He's a prodigy. They aren't as once in a lifetime as they used to be." Jiraiya watched on, beginning to believe that Sasuke could also be a good candidate for the Child of Prophecy due to his pure skill that reminded him slightly of Minato's. Sakura would have her battle with Ino, in which the two would fight well against each other, but it would end in a double knockout. "That's sad," Tsunade said as she watched on. Jiraiya looked over. "Whatever happened to watching Naruto over the matches?" Tsunade looked over at him. "That's what Orochimaru's for." Meanwhile, Orochimaru was also here, but he was actually doing his job. And since Tsunade and Jiraiya had gotten lazy on him, he had to call Kabuto in to watch. This became necessary after the battle between Rock Lee and Gaara. When the doctors could not heal Gaara, Tsunade found herself moved by the story of the ninja who could perform no ninjutsu, and that was allowed a short reprieve by Hiruzen to begin working on healing Rock Lee from his injuries. This was a dangerous time though, as a month's respite meant that they were doing nothing, all while visitors continued to come and go. Naruto was out of the public eye, which made it even more dangerous to them. So much so that Jiraiya decided to make this the moment when he made contact with Team 7. Orochimaru was slightly against this as it was not in their mission mandate, but Jiraiya said that it would be far easier for them to protect the group if they were training them, and it also helped them fulfill Jiraiya's secondary objective. They would approach the trio and their mentor and introduce themselves. Team 7 seemed rather skeptical of them from the get-go, but Orochimaru and Jiraiya kept up their friendly appearance, all while Kakashi hyped them up by explaining to his team just how legendary these two were. Jiraiya immediately let slip their mission and what they were doing, and telling specifically Naruto that they'd been following him just to protect him. "Our only mission here is to protect you, Naruto, but I've got a second mission that I set for myself. I wish to mentor you three. Of course, I wouldn't step your actual teacher's boundaries, he's still your teacher, but I have many skills I want to teach you, as does Orochimaru. Soon from now, once Tsunade's finished her business in healing that Rock Lee boy, she too will be here willing to teach. I feel that she'll have a greater connection to you there, Sakura, as she seemed more taken with your match against Ino Yamanaka. I feel that if we teach you three, you'll surpass even the first Hokage. Does that sound good? Sakura seemed interested, and Naruto was over the moon the moment he heard that he might be stronger than the first Hokage. Sasuke too was excited, though he held back any expression of that excitement save a rogue smile he couldn't suppress. And so their training began. During this time, Jiraiya would begin teaching Naruto 3 things. Number 1, how to control his tailed beast. He does this by forcing a meeting via the tried and true method of yeeting a child off a cliff. Once a connection is formed, he teaches Naruto how to get more chakra from his beast, allowing him to attain and perfect his initial Jinchuriki cloak into the version 1 cloak. This goes faster than it does in the original series, as Naruto was never forced to possess the 5-element seal by Orochimaru. Number 2, he teaches Naruto how to summon toads, in particular how to make use of the 9 Tails chakra to summon Gamabunta. Once he summons Gamabunta for the first time, Naruto is required to fight the toad to prove his worth, in which he just manages to punch the toad's head. This leaves almost no damage to the toad, but the effort he displayed and the fact that he at least managed to strike him once causes Gamabunta to respect Naruto enough to allow him to summon him in moderation. And number 3, he uses the excess time left over to begin teaching Naruto the trick to creating a Rasengan. Naruto manages to learn this technique quickly, mastering the first and second stages, but having issues with the third stage, in which he would opt to use a shadow clone to allow him to successfully create one. All the while, Orochimaru is teaching Sasuke a plethora of his own techniques, including how to summon Manda. He also teaches Sasuke the importance of appearance. The final technique is something that's a bit harder for most. I sense that you may have the potential to make use of this technique, however. This technique puts off an air of terror to those who witness it. It requires you to make eye contact with others. Sasuke stands there for a moment and watches. Orochimaru's smile disappears for a second as he takes a few deep breaths. He opens his eyes once more and gazes into Sasuke's. In his mind, he imagines doing the most heinous and evil things to him, killing him in the most painful and morbid of ways. All the while, he derives pleasure from this line of thought. A smile forms over Orochimaru's face as he imagines this. All the while, Sasuke sees this and he feels like he's having a heart attack. His breathing intensifies. He can see it in his own head. He can see just how he'll die. He begins to panic, sweating. Orochimaru closes his eyes, and once more his kind expression returns. He opens his eyes again and there's no hint of there ever being any hatred. Sasuke is shaken. What was that? He asks in a shaky voice. That, my dear Sasuke, was killing intent, and I believe you possess the ability to use it. How is it done? Orochimaru continues. The most extreme of emotional control. Think of your hatred as an eternal black flame. You can unleash it at will, but it will burn everything in your path. That's hardly helpful, as there may be something in your path you wish to preserve. And so you need another ability. You need control. The ability to control and shape the flames. In doing so, you will be able to focus your hatred and your ill intent, which both allows you to protect those you love from that pain and inflict it on your enemies with even greater volume. Sasuke sits there. That's insane. Orochimaru laughs. Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. Every good user of this technique requires some psychosis, a slightly demented nature. I sense in you an innate desire to commit murder. And from the end of that day, they found themselves back at the Chunin exams, each of them making use of their newfound abilities. Naruto's battle goes practically the same as he'd been taught by Jiraiya. The only difference is that he had the Rasengan here and uses it to defeat Neji. Now, things between Sasuke and Gaara are a little different. The two stand there in the middle of everyone, ready to begin their match. As the match begins, they continue standing there, a deathly silence coming over the arena. Despite the match having started, nobody says a word. They're too scared to. Most are aware that the battle has begun, but isn't yet visible. In the silence, the sound of children crying can be heard as Sasuke and Gaara both look deeply into each other's eyes. For a moment, Gaara is caught off guard. He didn't expect such a feeling from Sasuke. Gaara laughs as in his own head he can see his own mutilated body laying at the feet of those cursed blood-red eyes. All the while, it only fuels his anger more. Sasuke himself could feel this killing intent as well. But the difference between Gaara and Sasuke was that Gaara's intent was not focused. He was only hateful and psychopathic. He had no direction. He hated everyone, and because of that, his killing intent was diluted and spread too thin. Sasuke and Gaara entered battle. As they struck out, the sand protected Gaara from blunt attacks. But as he did this, many snakes left Sasuke's sleeves and crawled down his arm onto the ground, surrounding Gaara. Gaara would defend himself by releasing a large blast of sand, peeling the skin and muscle clean off the snakes, reducing them to nothing but bones. But as Sasuke came at him again, Gaara's sand shield went up, To his surprise and horror, the sand quivered and moved to the side, getting out of the way. Walking between the sand, Sasuke came in, his Sharingan glowing in the overshadowing darkness of his hair hanging down. His gaze was poured into Gaara as he drew closer. Gaara began to shake.
"It is not you who was born into this world to kill other beings. That was me."
Sasuke's mouth opened and he spoke. Perhaps so. But then who was born to kill you? Those words shake Gaara to his core. In one quick moment, a snake from Sasuke's sleeve lashes out and bites Gaara on the neck. Gaara grabs it and hits his knees. He looks up at Sasuke in terror, and Sasuke looks down on him without mercy or empathy. "You broke Lee's arm and leg. I'm gonna make you feel all that tenfold returned to you. Then you're gonna die." Orochimaru began to rub his temples. Oh dear. Gaara, now in absolute terror, suddenly lets the beast within him out, just as his father had ordered. As soon as this happens, Rasa takes Hiruzen hostage. Tsunade and Jiraiya look to Orochimaru.
"You deal with Gaara. We've got Hiruzen."
With that, they get up to rescue Hiruzen from the Kazekage. Orochimaru jumps the side and races out to Sasuke. The Anbu appear and begin to evacuate the onlookers. Gaara begins to strike out. Orochimaru looks to Sasuke and nods. The moment the arena is evacuated, Sasuke summons Manda, while Naruto on the other side summons Gamabunta. Orochimaru, on the other hand, utilizes the 8 branches technique, as what can only be described as a hydra appears. Together, the three face off against Shukaku, and as they slowly subdue this beast, Orochimaru pulls himself from one of the mouths of the hydra where he spots Gaara. He launches from its mouth towards Gaara, his hand out, and utilizes the 5-element seal to strengthen the seal Gaara had on Shukaku, which in turn causes the beast to fall away to sand, and Gaara to fall to the ground unconscious. In the aftermath, the damage done to Konoha is very little, and Gaara and his siblings are captured. All the while, Rasa was killed by the 3rd Hokage and his 2 students. The day after, the Sannin and Team 7 meet up to go eat. As they do so, they speak. Jiraiya is proud of Naruto's abilities that he displayed in battle. This flatters Naruto, who is eager to return to training. Orochimaru, on the other hand, expresses his disappointment in Sasuke's lack of control. This takes a toll on Sasuke's confidence a little, but Orochimaru partly walks his disappointment back by stating that he's impressed that Sasuke got this far in such a short period of time. Sasuke perks up a little from this. Kakashi then asks the obvious question as to what happened. Jiraiya would explain.
"It seems that Suna has been going through some hard times. Ever since the Ninetales attack 12 years ago, Konoha's been under hard times too. Our reputation's taken a hit, which is why the Sannin came back together. Just to get Konoha back in good standing, and it seems we may have done our job too well. We're now being hired out for every job that comes around, and that means Suna, which used to be the Land of Wind's go-to village, is being shunned in preference to us, which is causing them to drown in debt. Rasa attacked us in hopes of ruining our reputation in hopes that it would bring life back to Suna. It's rather sad, actually, but it's the way things had to be."
Kakashi nods in acknowledgement before looking to Tsunade. "How about Gaara? How's he?" Tsunade looks up. "He's in our custody and is actually doing really well. He seems to have been suffering from severe sleep deprivation. I don't know what Orochimaru did, but Gaara has finally been sleeping. Quite a bit, actually. He only wakes up to eat before going back to sleep. I'm almost envious." Kakashi laughs at this. Jiraiya continues to eat, taking a sip of his sake as he looks to Naruto.
"We'll take the rest of the week off. After that, we'll begin our training in earnest."
Orochimaru mirrors this sentiment. Team 7 seems pleased by this and they enjoy their meal. Jiraiya looks at his team and begins to see in them the makings of the new Sannin. They remind him so much of himself and his team, and this pleases him. But at the same time, he knows that they're likely going to be far stronger. In his heart, he begins to believe that he is training the child of prophecy. Whether it's Sasuke or Naruto makes no difference, he'll train them all the same, and hopefully, through these teachings, the world will know its long-awaited peace. And that's where we're calling it quits for the day. I hope you all enjoyed this. I know I sure did. This one's been a long time coming, and I hope it was everything you hoped it would be, and maybe more. If this video does well, you can expect to see a continuation sometime in the future. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Click our link right now to get all of those awesome bonuses and the world's best vehicle camouflage, a body pillow. Be sure to leave a comment below to let us know what you think and what you'd like to see in the future. Until next time, peace.
Did you enjoy our video? Well then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.